sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals.
Hello everyone, welcome to our last webinar before the summer break. Today we're going to talk about environmental sustainability in production sites. So today our focus is on the manufacturing sector. Today with me Giorgio Puzzarini, our sustainability specialist, and Fabrizio Labatesta from Novo Nordisk, which is going to talk about the case study of Novo Nordisk. This is the lineup of today. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction about XNatura, our main goal, and our new environmental platform. I would like to give you a very new news about the EU roadmap on natural credits that was just released by the European Union yesterday. I want to show you some updates on the platform about the section on risks. Then we're going to go through some norms and directive about the sector. So we're going to look at the risk, dependencies, investor, clients, and reporting. So which are the main reasons why you should care about nature and biodiversity. We're going to look at the CSRD compliance, the ESRS standards, the TNFD, LEAP approach, and finally the EUDR and the CSRD. As usual, I think this is actually the most important and the most the part that you like the most. So the live demo on a specific production site. Finally, we're going to look at the case studies of Novo Nordisk, and at the end, you have always the time for the Q&A sessions. So if you have any questions during the webinar, you can use the chat, of course, and we will answer all the questions during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Okay. Okay. So a very, very brief overview about us. XNatura, we are a naturtech environmental platform that uses technology for biodiversity monitoring and protection. We are more than 60 employees. We have a very big team that actually does R&D. For us, there are 15 people. We are mapping, monitoring more than 1 million hectares all over the world. And we have more than 10,000 IoT devices that are monitoring biodiversity, pollinators, birds, and mammals all around the world. We have more than 500 customers, covering more than 25 countries. And those are some of the key partners and scientific institutions that we are working with. An example is the European Space Agency. We received a fund from the EU last year to develop the first biodiversity credit. And about that, there is a news, a very hot news from yesterday. So yesterday, the EU has released the European roadmap for nature credits. So the goal is to create a reliable system that generates value from investments into nature, supporting nature-positive economy where businesses recognize nature as a strategic asset. So what's going on? First of all, the project needs to be certificated. So we need to certificate nature positive action. Then once the project is certified, so demonstrate the measurable positive outcomes for nature. And finally, we can create from the project actually a credit or more credits that are verified, quantified units that can represent nature improvements. And of course, the credit at the end, they can be registered and they can be traded. This is the roadmap. So as you can see, this year, they will start with the expert group that will establish and gather all the knowledge and the best practice on nature credits. In 2026, the first methodologies for carbon farming with biodiversity co-benefit will be adopted. And the expert group will be asked with providing input on the criteria and methodologies for nature credit. And starting from 2027, the Commission will ask the expert group for advice on designing governance framework, particularly for smallholders and SMEs. So this is the roadmap. This is very hot news. And of course, we knew that Europe was working on nature credit because we received the grant, but now it's actually officializing everything. And we are really, really enthusiastic about that. About us, again, XNatura is the Nature Intelligence division of 3B. 3B is a company that starting from 2017 was monitoring and regenerating nature. We have experience with, in helping companies mostly, but also municipalities and natural parks. and we use a lot of different technologies all in one platform in order to have a single platform that gives you data about nature and can help decision makers from companies, municipalities, and nature parks to take, actions to take decisions. The technologies goes from remote sensing to sensor on the ground, lab analysis, and on-field survey. So it's a very complete analysis, starting from the top, going to the very bottom into the actual field. Okay, going to the sector, I wanted to give you a very brief overview of what we think are the main platform benefits for the manufacturing production sector. So first of all, using scientific-based KPIs, XNatura, in fact, enables to transform nature-related data into structured metrics in a digital format. The second benefit is, of course, benchmarking and target verification. So the platform helps you defining whether your sites meet environmental targets and perform benchmark comparison within the industry. The third benefit is supply chain risk analysis and prioritization. So XNatura helps identifying sites that are the most under climate risk, not only, also heavily reliant on natural resources. Fourth benefit is CSRD and TNFD compliance. The platform is actually built following those approaches, so TNFD LEAP approach, but also following the ESRS standards from EU. Fifth benefit is creating scenario analysis. So with the platform, you are able to generate complete scenario analysis with future KPI projections, for example, from IPCC scenario. And this allows for informed and structured management of the supply chain. Another benefit is developing a biodiversity action plan and a nature strategy. So actually the platform can actually help you in assisting in the creation of a BAP, but also in the nature strategy. And finally, very important when we talk about reporting is click to generate report. So you have all the data in a single platform for all your assets, and you can actually generate a report very simply with a button. Okay, so the manufacturing sector accounts for a large portion of the global resource consumption. We know that. Also energy use, GHG emissions, making it very important for the sector to start discussing about environmental sustainability. At the same time, we know that the sector impacts, but also depend and is also very vulnerable to external shocks. For this reason, I wanted to give you a brief overview of a new portion of the platform, which is very related to risks. So this is, for example, the portfolio risk overview. So as you can see here, you have different assets you have, and you can select, for example, the IPCC scenarios to see how the portfolio risk levels change. You can actually see different risks here with the layers. So you can select the layer. For example, looking at the draft, looking at the hydrogeological risk, and comparing among all of your assets relating to these specific risk. Okay. This is also a portfolio risk overview, but in this case, we have all the assets and we have a table we can actually see. We have the floating rating, which is according to the physical risk, but you also have the risk rating that is not only about physical risk, but also includes the level, includes the economic value of the asset. So it's a mix of the physical risk and the economic value of the asset. This is very important because you may have an asset that has a lower physical risk but has a higher economic value, so overall the risk is higher. Of course, this is another overview for the portfolio risk. This is very interesting if you want to analyze the distribution of the physical risk in your portfolio. And this also is a table that is interesting because you can plot the, of course, the risk, but over the years. So you can select the year and see the evolution of the overall risks. Of course, we have developed this new section of the platform also for site-specific risk. So if you go into a site-specific, you can have the overall risk level and see actually it also on the map. You can view all the physical level and see them over time. So plotting them for the years. And this is the last graph I want to show you, which I think is so interesting because you can actually see the risk with the IPCC scenarios. So going from the most optimistic risk, the most optimistic scenario to the worst scenario. Okay, so I wanted to give this overview because this is a new feature we have on the platform. And I think it's so interesting specifically for this sector. Okay, we can go back to the sector. So we know that the 60% of the global manufacturing value depends directly on or indirectly on ecosystem services. So the sector impacts, the sector has risk, but also depend on nature and ecosystem services. So this is for us are the four main reasons why in the manufacturing sector you should care about biodiversity. So it's a matter of risk, we saw that, and also dependencies. It's a matter of investors. In fact, the investors now are demanding for transparency on nature-related risk. Then it's another main reason is clients and consumer. So growing awareness drives demand for nature-conscious brand, but also if you are in the B2B sector, and finally for reporting reasons. Those are, this is an overview of risk and dependency for the sector. So as you can see, companies have impact on biodiversity and ecosystem through, GHG emissions, climate change, ecosystems use, resources exploitation, island species, pollution, and so on. But they also depend on ecosystem services because of natural resources, processes, and also cultural ecosystem services. It's also, as we said, a matter of investors. In fact, the investors, they are looking for sustainable practices, not only to mitigate environmental risk, but also to offer opportunities for cost reduction, efficiency, improvement, and access to new markets. Also, of course, there is a reason for clients and consumers. And then there is the reason about reporting. So we know that now with the CSRD, more companies need to report on nature and biodiversity. Actually, of course, we know that there are some updates on Omnibus, that some of them are still need to be are in discussion phase, but still, this is the current situation. So in 2025, large listed companies are actually starting to report. In 2028, the large unlisted companies with more than 250 employees 50 million revenues, and 25 million total balance sheet. And all of the non-EU companies with more than 150 millions. And then in 2029, also listed SMEs, but excluding the micro enterprises. Of course, if you need to report about biodiversity, nature, you should use the ESRS if you are in Europe. And you know that there is a specific ESRS on nature and biodiversity, which is the E4. Of course, the ESRS, they require business to consider the double materiality. So as we said, not only impact, but also financial materiality. So if you have risk related to nature, yes, you should add KPIs on nature related matters. Also TNFD, of course, we use TNFD as a framework, and we have developed all the platform related to this framework. And of course, there are, a lot of sectors that should look at this framework, and also there are some supply chain related policy such as EUDR and CSRD, and the platform can actually be used to use KPI to report on these two directives, especially if we talk about EUDR. Also, the platform can actually support to have data in order to get some environmental certifications such as ISO, but also EU Ecolabel and EMS. Okay, I have 3 more minutes. I want to give you the 5 steps for integrated nature into your business: measuring, prioritize, setting targets, act, and disclose and track. So the first thing you can do actually with the platform is measuring. The measuring phase, it's actually very important because you can get a lot of data starting from a top-down approach, so with remote sensing, but also you can integrate data from the ground with sensor, on-field survey, and lab analysis, and you have all in one platform. The goal in this phase is to collect, organize all the high-quality data. They're, of course, transparent because they come from technologies and public databases, and you can have all of this data in a single platform. This is something more about the sensor. Of course, we are developing a lot of sensor that you can put on the ground to monitor nature. We have the Spectrum and the Birdie. They are IoT bioacoustic sensor that monitor pollinators and birds. Of course, we have camera trap for mammals. We have the Pollix, which is the wild pollinator shelters that also monitor air quality. Of course, there is the HiveTech, which is an IoT system that, if applied to a beehive, can be used to monitor the health status of a bee colony, but can actually be used as a bioindicator. What I want to add and stress here is the fact that actually those are the sensors that we have developed, and of course you can easily use them and have them on the platform, but the platform also can be integrated with other sensors you already have on the field. So it's really easy to integrate also external data into the platform to have all in one. Once you have all the data, you can prioritize. So in this phase, the goal is to organize all the data and prioritize among all your assets. This is very important because you can actually understand which are the assets you should care the most and prioritize at the beginning because they are, for example, more at risk. So this is very important to organize and start assessing which are the most sites that are in difficult at the moment. In this case, for example, you can see the graph, we took into account the hydrogeological risk, but there are also, you can actually choose other KPI to plot, and that can be used to prioritize your decisions. Yes, of course, you can also take into consideration at the moment the climate risk data to set the prioritization phase. Once you have prioritized, you can set targets, and this is very important. It's very important to do so just after measuring, because if you set target before measuring, then you may set targets that are not in line with your business and that may not be easy to reach. So it's important to do it after. In setting target, you can choose the approach. So you can set targets using the control area, so the surrounding area of the site. You can set target by using the industry benchmark, but you can also choose to use some frameworks to set target, like the Natural Restoration Law or the half-heard framework, or actually you can also put the target of full recovery. This is actually a very difficult target to reach. Once you have set all the target, you can start making some actions. Of course, if we look at the site-specific approach, you can have a biodiversity action plan. While if you are looking at the portfolio approach, you're gonna have to develop a nature strategy, okay? And finally, you can use the platform to disclose and track. The platform can actually develop simply, generate simply reports, but you can actually use the platform to track over time, over the years, all the data about nature, biodiversity, and climate. Those are some of the clients that have already chosen us. And now is the time for the demo session. So please, Giorgio, join me on the stage if you want to start with the demo.
Yes, thank you, Virginia, and good morning, everyone. I am Giorgio Puzzarini, Sustainability Specialist in XNatura, and today I'll be walking you through a practical demonstration of the XNatura platform, obviously tailored for the manufacturing sector. Now I'm sharing my screen, and I'll turn off my camera just for avoiding connection problems. So, okay, let's start. Today, just to give you an overview, we'll explore how the platform can provide nature-related data for a specific site, for a specific production site, and how to use those data to prioritize actions in your supply chain. So let's start from this. Here we are in the overview section, and this is the first thing you see when you access to the platform. Here on the map, you can see all the sites of our hypothetical company. If you click into one of them, you can go directly to the specific site. But first, let's take a look at some useful data, some general data. We see that our company has 41 sites all around the world with a total extension of 46,000 hectares. And our supply chain is really differentiated as we have 51 different production processes. Here are some key numbers about the impacts, dependencies, and risks about nature. We have 22 sites out of 41 which have as a direct impact on biodiversity, while other interesting data are 20 sites out of 41 which are under hydrogeological risks, and 31 which have an above average climate change condition. So those are some highlights which can be very useful to understand the state of our sites. More effective, even more effective, can be this metrics. Here we can compare different parameters on the X and Y axis and clearly see how they relate to each other and their trends across the different sites. Each point on the graph represents a different site, as we can see. And this helps us identify which sites might have a significant impact on biodiversity and ecosystem services. In this case, I've chosen the local heating as the x-axis and distance to protected area in the y. Of course, this is just an example. I wanted to underline how generating and heat stress can have a significant impact on biodiversity. Obviously, it is related to the distance to protected areas, which are surely providing some benefits to our site or our supply chain in general. We can consider many other factors. We can prioritize considering the MSA. We can use the hydrogeological risk, for example, and all the other different metrics, which you can see here. Okay, let's say we have chosen which site to focus on. So I move to the specific section. Here we are, perfect. Again, the first thing we see is the map. Why? Because we follow the TNFD LEAP approach. We already explained that. It stands for Locate, Evaluate, Assess, and Prepare. And it helps organization understand their interaction with nature. So we decided to modify our platform following this approach. So for first, locate geographical conditions. And it is very interesting here to see the different layers. Here we have just the perimeter. So we notice that the blue one is our site, while the control area is the 5x5 kilometer in white. I want to go very fast to the land cover field. We can visualize all the different land cover type in the site. The main part is the industrial unit, clearly in our case. But we notice that there is a small part, which is a complex cultivation partner here. And we have a semi-natural part there, just in light green. All the data we take are validated from public databases, generally. Yeah, this is the ESA world cover, CLC land cover, for example. And I want to underline also the hydrogeological risk, which is very useful to see in a very graphical manner. So in this case, we have a level 3 area, which is at medium risk. The area is quietly flood prone. We will see it better later, taking a look at the past events. And we are very close to a river. I recall you later, we will analyze it better for sure. I wanted just to make you see the graphical part. Perfect. That's the soil temperature. It is clear how the artificially covered area is much hotter than the agricultural or natural ones, reaching a peak of around 50 degrees in the core area. This can stress both the infrastructure, but the workers too, other than compromising the functioning, obviously, of the surrounding areas, having an impact on biodiversity. Okay, we can analyze many other layers, but I can go below. There are some geographical data in the locate section. We are in Italy, and there's a brief description of biome typology, production process, a description of the site activity, and the regulatory context. Everything can be edited with the help of the AI, but also by our Nature strategists, which can revise all the data and can obviously be modified even by you if it is your site and you want to give a different description. Okay, we pass to the highlights, to the overview of status and impact. For first, as you can see, it's a very simple visualization. All the data are already divided by the ESRS standards, water, biodiversity, etc. As you can see, very effective, very easy. In fact, the platform is compliant with the main frameworks for reporting, among which the CSRD, clearly. And we can also generate an automatic report using the AI, and this can be reviewed by our specialist and can better align with your specific needs. It's surely a big time saver when you're putting together a lot of data related to nature. We know it's usually a real struggle for professionals in the sector. So another effective overview is about the impacts and dependencies. Here, this is a simple table linked to each production process. In this case, we are other manufacturing classification, since our site is dedicated to the production of ceramics. The table is automatically generating using data from the Anchor database. But if you notice something that doesn't match reality, in your opinion, you can modify freely the values. Once again, our strategies can edit it, but for example, I've chosen to edit the area of land use. I can choose the intensity, reach, and irremovability of the impact, and we can modify it easily, always calling for an help of the AI if we need it. Okay, we enter into the core of the platform, to the KPI metrics. Those are all scientific-based, standardized by using the ESRS standards, and comparable, which give us ready-to-use data, very useful. So we already seeing the land use from the initial map, but we notice better here that we are located on the outskirts of the city, where the landscape is gradually transitioning into an agricultural land. This is related to the site, while this graph is related to the control area, the white one. Okay, related to this, it is interesting to analyze the impermeable land report. It's crucial since we are in a flood-prone area. We have seen that we have a medium risk for hydrogeological risk. So this value, which is really critical, should serve as a red flag for our site. It signals the need for an immediate action. Okay, you can notice all the different KPIs. In my opinion, here is relevant the distances to rivers. In this case, we notice we have the Lamone River, which is less than 5 kilometers away from us, so should be surely monitored. And related to the impermeability is the built-up area. Surely it is very high, but it's not true for the control area, as you can see. Probably that's why we are not under extreme threat for the hydrogeological risk, but surely we have to monitor those data and to analyze it in details. We can pass to the microclimate section, where we can observe that the site is suffering a relevant increase in temperatures compared to 50 years ago, for example. So it can be interesting to analyze the future projections. It is possible to compare the different IPCC scenarios. I've chosen the best one, 2.6, in order not to be too catastrophic. But even this one doesn't show very nice data for the future. We are always above 2 degrees. We can also evaluate to plan a regeneration activity, at least for mitigating the effects in our site. Clearly, we can't act at a global scale. Related to this, it is very important also to analyze the rain trends. We notice an increase by 16%, which seems nice, but analyzing the context, we see that there are less episodes, but more tropical, more extreme. So again, can be dangerous for our site. And the aridity KPI confirms this thought, as the agricultural area too is slightly arid. Okay, now we reach the state of biodiversity section, where the key player is the MSA, the mean species abundance. This indicator shows how healthy and diverse the biodiversity state is compared to a natural, completely untouched state, unaffected by human activities. It works from 0 to 100, where 100 means completely untouched ecosystem, perfect one, while 0 is a totally degraded environment. Unfortunately, our biodiversity levels are extremely low. As we notice here, we have just 7 out of 100, much worse than the control area, which is the ugly one, but it's still low, and even lower than the average benchmark of the sector, which is the 51.5. In short, we have a serious issue. It needs to be addressed. And how can we act for this? For sure, always the best choice is to act using quantitative data, as the MSA. So we can use those metrics to set our targets. In this case, could be optimal to choose the regenerate 30%, since it wouldn't make sense to match our neighbor. Surely they have different production activities that are, for the major part, agricultural fields, so it won't make sense to take this key goal for us. After decided the target, we can perform a simulation of the conditions we'd like to test. We can make it through the scenario analysis function. I go back to the first map, perfect, just to show you graphically better how we can redo. Okay, perfect. We come to modify, manual edit. Here we can edit the land cover, choosing how much a regeneration activity can increase the MSA and other biodiversity-related KPIs. Let's suppose we have decided to regenerate this part, the semi-natural one, or to create some border lawn there, or even to implement a project for a green roof. We can choose whatever we want. Clearly, I won't make everything now, since it would be too long for us. I'll come back to the platform. Okay, and go through the other KPIs, just to show you. There's a protected area KPIs. It shows the extension and distance of protected areas from the site. The proximity can positively influence the local biodiversity, but at the same time, it implies greater attention to the negative effects that our site can have on nature and biodiversity. In fact, we notice the presence of 31 at-risk species in the area. This is referred mainly, obviously, to the region, the control area, and the native part. It is also key to understand the abundance of pollinators at the site for assessing its biodiversity status. Currently, the situation is quite poor, but targeted regeneration efforts surely can lead to significant improvements by even dedicating a small portion of the site, such as by installing a beehive, for example. We have this tool too. We can understand if there's a good predisposition for this. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is the risk section, especially important in our case. There's a real chance of a major event happening in the next years. The area has already faced some flooding in the past and some extreme events, as we can see there. And our control site is actually in a zone marked as extremely high risk. So it is something we really need to prioritize. At least we are not under extreme risks for landslide, since we are in a plain area. And related to that can be the soil temperature, which is critical here, since we are generating a neat island. There are very high values for soil temperature, which can increase cost for refrigerating the site itself and maintaining decent work conditions. So it also becomes becomes a social and governance issue for our company. So I'll pass very fast in other KPIs just to show you the possibility to assess also financial risks and opportunities. We can edit it, we can add everything we want. This is particularly useful for the scenario analysis. And last thing, we have, as told before by Virginia, many different sensors which we can install in the site. I go very fast in a real site, as I can show you real data. We have the different sensors marked in the map, but going fast to the dedicated section, we see the data related to the pollinator clusters. Those are the data related to the spectrum sensor, that is the bioacoustic tool for pollinators. It works by picking up the different buzzing sounds of the insects, of pollinators, now not related to the species level, obviously. It groups them into cluster, which is more than sufficient for our aim, and is super useful to understand the overall biodiversity levels. It is a very useful graph to understand the behavior into a period of time. Okay, we are running out of time, so for today I think it is everything. The platform has many other tools. I just invite you to explore it. And all right, thank you so much for your attention. I'll hand back over to Virginia.
Okay, thank you, Giorgio. Of course, you can also book a private demo about the platform. If you want to do so, you can easily ask for a demo with the button you're going to find on the follow-up later when we finish the webinar, or you can actually write to us on LinkedIn on our emails you find at the end of the sessions. So now it's the time for the case study. Today we bring the case study of Novo Nordisk, which collaborates with us. They choose us to monitor and protect biodiversity around the Italian headquarters. And today with me there is Fabrizio Labatessa. That is going to start with their sustainability strategy, and then it's going to go through the specific project with us. Thank you, Fabrizio.
Thank you, Virginia. Hello, everybody. It is a pleasure being here to present our actual effort in biodiversity conservation for Novo Nordisk Italy. As Virginia already said, I'm Fabrizio Labatessa, and I work in the Italian affiliate as the external communication sustainability project manager since actually 4 years. So for whoever is not aware of who Novo Nordisk is a Danish company with approximately 100 years of history. It supplies 50% of insulin in the world, and I think is now, yes, because it changed really fastly, the biggest company for market capitalization in Europe. So it's a big reality, and we are extremely happy to work with XNatura for our roadmap, for our Natura ambitions. So, as you may see, what is now in the slide is our Nature roadmap. As you may imagine, we have different production sites around the world. The last one that we acquired is actually in Anagni, and is going to be the biggest of Novo Nordisk outside Denmark. But we're not going to talk about that because it's still too early to talk about biodiversity loss and for that. But we of course understood and that the importance of biodiversity for our business as a first step, and of course, I mean, for the world in general. Nova has always been extremely keen to explore new ways to reduce our impact. Is a Danish company. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this kind of company from those parts of the world, and that they are extremely attentive to this situation. So 2 years ago, we developed a roadmap for the nature part, just for that. So avoiding the other emission and so on, just connected with nature. And is, of course, the idea is to stop the nature loss by 2033 and to start being nature positive by 2045. It's actually interesting because when I joined Novo, they started showing me what they are doing in Bersvard, that is our main headquarter, and I could see, for example, underground paths for animals, huge field around the production site themselves, and it's something that started a lot of years ago. Bear in mind that Novo did the first sustainability report in 1994. So we are talking around 30 years ago, when we were extremely far from being as normal as it is now to do it. But they were still talking about it. So the nature roadmap is included in, Virginia, you can skip the move to, yes, in our Circular for Zero strategy that aims to get zero environmental impact by 2045. And it's made of 3 main pillars. That is circular supply, because we need to engage with our suppliers in order to reduce the impact that comes from them. Circular company, because we want to reduce the environment of our own operation. That, of course, as you all know, it's much smaller than the upstream and downstream, so the scope 3 emissions, but still it's something we need to take into account. Circular products, but because we produce a lot of plastics, a lot of card, a lot of papers, all because of the device where the insulin is injected. But of course, and this is kind of old because it started in 2018, the strategy, but a couple of years ago we understood that there was something missing, and was the nature part. So we designed the roadmap on the next slide to understand where we can actually work. Of course, it's easy, let's say, to say that we can reduce our impact on nature. Another thing is actually doing that, because insulin comes from yeast, it comes from bacteria that grow with it, from glucose. Glucose is extremely heavy on nature, is also extremely heavy on CO2 emission, to be honest with you. But it's also indispensable to create something that is a life-saving treatment. So it's difficult to balance the effectivity of a medicine compared with the nature part, because still we are talking about life-saving medicine, and so it's always a challenge. And the same for water. Water is crucial for the creation of all of our product, but we are taking that into account extremely seriously. I will talk about it in a few seconds. So everything that is related with water scarcity and loss of biodiversity has been taken into account in our nature plan. In the next slide, I will go a little deeper. So you can go now in the next Virgin, sorry. So yes, land, as I was telling with you before, it's mostly based on the glucose sourced, and also the paper sourced for the packaging part, so the external packaging that comes with the medicines themselves. Of course, it goes without saying, we are also redesigning our product in order to reduce the use of it at the beginning. So we will need always less paper, because we will have less packaging, less plastic because we will have more efficient medicine. So of course there is something in behind, so much higher than the just nature part, but still it's something that it needs to take into account. For what regard water, we are using different models to reduce the use of it, especially in places where there is water scarcity. I'm talking as an example about our Montes Claros site, where it's produced 17% of world insulin, and is in Brazil. And we managed through a series of development in the site themselves to reduce the use of water by 75% in the last years. So it's relevant. It's a lot of effort, but it's also good for the business. So the other part to restore, and I think in the restore area is where XNatura and 3B entered. Actually, I can't be as clear as Virginia and Giorgio have been before. So when you see this picture, take in mind what Giorgio was just telling you regarding the things in the elements that are used to make an assessment of what was the impact of our headquarters in Italy. So it seems we can say that the project with XNatura start from what I was telling before. So the nature roadmap that is more based for production site, but of course even a small headquarter needs and can be a little different, and it was also a good pilot to then expand it to other regions. The picture you can see is our headquarter in Rome, in Roma Eur, and through the installation of 3 spectrum, as before, Virginia explained to you before extremely well, we managed to understand what kind of impollinators came there, how much is the difference with the near area that are, I would say, not so heavily constructed. And we try to understand the land of use, the heat on that part, so everything basically that George explained before that is possible to see. Once we understood that, and we also understood that it was not a huge impact, because I'm telling you it's just an office, even if it's big, it's an office. We decided to create. We decided to go on 2 different road. Let's say the one you can see now is the on-site regeneration, because we recently acquired the top floor of the building, so the terrace, and in that we are creating a green space where not only people will be able to work, but also to enjoy, let's say, the outside part, but also to help nature to regenerate themselves. So there will be native plants, there will be shelter for pollinator, and also a lot of let's say information, because awareness is extremely relevant for a reality like ours. And this is just aside from our conversation. When I was actually installing the spectrum, I was going around my office with those small package, and everyone was stopping me and saying, "Yeah, but what is that? What is that?" And that was actually already starting to create awareness, because we usually see a lot of things coming through, newsletter, things that has been done somewhere far. But then when you see something that is in your site, and is actually extremely is heavy based on science, it makes a difference, and it's super cool. This is what's actually we actually did. So the generation project with the adaptation of 1 arboretum with 100 native plants, a monitored oasis, and the supporter of 1 grower that actually goes there and take care of the plants. And we also adopted a biomonitored hive with 60,000 bees that already that is, I hope, already doing something in that part of Italy. So it is just to say that the projects are easy to implement. XNatura is a really good partner, I would say, in that, and they raise a good awareness through the population. And I hope it's going to work for also the others.
Thank you, Fabrizio. This was very interesting. So I might go to directly to give you some information. Of course, as you know, you can download the white paper with more information about the manufacturing sector. Just to give you some information about our next events. So my colleagues, Elisa and Martina, they're going to be in Frankfurt starting from the 4th of September for 2 days at the World Class Sustainability and Resource Management. Then the 4th of us, we are going to be in Amsterdam from the 8th to the 10th of September for Regenerative Agriculture Summit Europe. Then my colleague Simone and our client Cubico, they're going to be in Zurich on the 16th and 17th of September. Then me and Martina, we're going to be in Amsterdam for the 5th Annual Sustainability Week on the 6th and the 7th of October. And finally, on the 15th and 17th of October, we're going to be in Birmingham for the Highways UK. So an event very focused on the infrastructure sector. So of course, it was very fast. So if you don't want to miss anything about our events, our news, you can join our Telegram channel. And you can look at what are we doing the following week. So you can find us around Europe. Okay, so I know it's late, but still, I would like to do the Q&A session since many of you are still connected. So I would like to start from the first question we received. It's from Francesco. Francesco is asking us if it is possible to access other scenarios data sets such as IPBES. Okay, so about that, let's say that currently in XNatura, we include the IPCC scenario, as I explained before, with all the projections. And for us at the moment, the IPCC remains the most widely recognized scientific authority for global scale climate data. So I think we're gonna focus on that. Then Francesco is asking us if the webinar will be available to rewatch. Of course, yes, you can find the webinar on our platform and on our website, so you can rewatch it. Of course, if you already completed the form on StreamYard or on our website, you can rewatch it easily. Then Marco asked us if it's possible to have access to the platform for scientific purposes. In particular, he's a PhD student interested in assessing the exposure of financial intermediaries to biodiversity and environmental risks. Yes, it's possible, and for that we have a specific path. So you can join our beta tester project, where you can have access to the platform for 1 month. So if you want to do so, let's keep in touch at the end of the webinar and see. Actually, you can start the beta tester project. Okay. Then Ezio, he's asking us, can XNatura measure soil organic carbon in order to validate the extent of carbon sequestration and associated carbon credits? Or is humus validated by a client and added to the XNatura database? In other words, can carbon sequestration be monetized via the XNatura platform? This is a very interesting question, actually. So you can upload your own soil organic carbon measurement. As I said before, the platform can be used to add other data that you got on the ground. You can simply attach the lab certificate when you create the census on the dashboard, and the platform stores the document, so the entire chain of custody is traceable and audit ready. Of course, if you have also question for Fabrizio on the corporate side, on the value side, you can ask. Then there is another question by Isaac. It is possible to integrate your tools into other mobile application or web version. Yes, of course, we can provide external widgets that can be integrated anywhere in your own web application, so you can do so, no problem. There is also another question from Francesco. So it is possible to have access to the platform for climate movements, so to better understand our cities and the risks and take better action to pressure policy makers. Interesting question, of course. You can use the platform for municipalities and cities in general to plan mitigation activities, to prepare, of course, for extreme events. For example, very important is the scenario analysis that can be done in order to understand how to mitigate urban heat islands. So yes, it can be used for city and urban management. We have the last two questions. The first one is from Gabriele. Does XNatura take into account only the nature-related aspects within the plant site of the company, or does it consider even other aspects outside the company's plant, for example, supply chain, transport? And does it propose solutions or action to undertake in order to walk around hypothetical issue, or just provide a state of the art of the situation? This is a long question. Very, very long question. Okay, so we can track soil carbon gains, and okay, I think I got the wrong answer. So does XNatura take into account only the nature related? And this is the question from Gabriele.
I'll try to.
Okay, yes, you can try.
Yeah. In general, yes, XNatura focuses on nature-related impacts and dependencies within your own assets. It is the same if you manage a single plant or a network of sites worldwide, as we've seen before. And the platform can aggregate those locations into multi-site analysis. The portfolio view, we have saw something from the overview section before, but it does not yet model the supply chain and transport-related impacts outside the company's direct footprint for the moment.
Okay, last question from Ezio. Can the XNatura database, and in particular a projection of target data for any site project, be monetized in order to develop a business case model for the site project? In other words, a client will need to outlay financial resources to enhance biodiversity, but can these biodiversity credits be integrated so that realistic NPVs, IRR, and payback be calculated? Also very interesting question. We can track soil carbon gains and generate verification reports, but XNatura does not yet convert those ecosystem services into financial metrics, like the one that you mentioned, so NPV, IRR, payback, and so on. So the economic valuation module is in development. We are actually developing it because we think it's very important and will be our next product milestone, hopefully by the end of this year. So for now, we provide risk indicators, the one I showed at the beginning of the webinar, link it to market prices. Detailed return on investment modeling remains outside of the platform for the moment, okay? Okay, we took 10 minutes more, but I think it was worth it. Again, thank you to Fabrizio for joining us. It was very interesting having for the first time a case study from one of our companies. You can find all our email addresses here if you want to contact us, also the one of Fabrizio. And still, you can join our Telegram channel if you want to be updated to our news and events. Thank you so much. And as I said before, this is our last webinar before summer break, and we will start again with our webinar from September. Okay?
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective.